Ladies and gentlemen, listen careful. The person you've been until now cannot take you to the place you were created to go. If you want transformation, if you want abundance, if you want freedom, then the first step is not to add more to the old version of you. The first step is to destroy that version completely. Why? Because the old you is built on habits, beliefs, fears, and excuses that are incompatible with the greatness you say you want. You cannot rebuild your life on a weak foundation. You must clear the ground first. The version of yourself that tolerates mediocrity, procrastination, and excuses is expired. That version cannot carry you into the future you keep imagining. Think about it. If the thoughts, beliefs, and actions you have used up until now were capable of producing the life you say you want, you would already be living that life. The fact that you are not is undeniable proof that the old operating system you've been running on is outdated, expired, done. You can keep patching it, keep making excuses for it, keep pretending it still works, but deep down, you know it is broken. You know that version of yourself has reached its limit. You know it is not capable of leading you into the abundance, the freedom, or the success you desire. Holding onto the old you is like watering a dead tree. You can pour all the energy you want into it. You can speak to it. You can hope for it, but nothing new is going to grow. The roots are gone. The life is drained out. And the longer you keep watering that dead tree, the longer you delay planting a new one. This is why so many people stay stuck year after year. They refuse to acknowledge that their old ways of thinking and behaving are no longer producing fruit. Instead of letting go, they double down on what isn't working. They fight to keep an identity that is suffocating them. Because even though it is unproductive, it feels familiar. The danger of familiarity is that it tricks you into believing it is safe. You say to yourself, at least I know who I am this way. You know the patterns, you know the excuses, you know the people around you who accept that version of you. But safety is not progress. Familiarity is not destiny. The very thing you are clinging to for comfort is the very thing keeping you trapped. The expired version of you is the anchor holding your ship in shallow water while you're dreaming of sailing the ocean. Until you cut it loose, you'll never leave the shore. The old you is the one that keeps tolerating mediocrity. It says, this is good enough. It tells you, at least you're not failing completely. It whispers, don't reach too high, you might fall. That voice is not your future. That voice is the echo of your past. Every time you give into it, you extend the expiration date of the old you. But no matter how long you cling to it, it still cannot produce anything new. Mediocrity can only reproduce more mediocrity. Settling for less can only deliver less. You cannot expect premium results from bargain level effort. The old you is the one that procrastinates. It says, I'll start tomorrow. It says, I need to be ready first. It convinces you that delay is harmless. But every delay is a decision. Every time you put off the action you know you need to take, you are choosing to remain in the same cycle another day. And here's the truth. The old you survives by keeping you comfortable in delay. It thrives on tomorrow thinking. It feeds on someday, maybe. As long as you keep saying later, the old you stays alive. The problem is later never comes. Later becomes weeks, months, years. Later becomes regret. The old you is the one that makes excuses. It always has a reason for why you can't, why you haven't, why it won't work. That version of you can rationalize failure in 100 different ways. It can blame the economy, the government, your family, your past, your circumstances. It can shift responsibility onto anything or anyone except the person in the mirror. And as long as the excuses keep coming, the results will stay the same. Excuses are the shield the old you uses to protect itself from extinction. Because if you ever stopped making excuses and actually took full responsibility, the old you would have no power left. The truth is harsh, but it is liberating. The version of you that has gotten you this far has already expired. It has reached the limit of its usefulness. It cannot take you any further. Pretending it still works is self-deception. Holding onto it is self-sabotage. What you have to realize is that the old you has already run its course. It has taught you what it was meant to teach you. It has given you all it has to offer. And now it is finished. You don't argue with expiration dates. You don't drink spoiled milk and hope it will taste better tomorrow. You throw it out and replace it with something fresh. When you accept that the old you is expired, you give yourself permission to stop fighting for your limitations. You give yourself permission to step out of the identity that is no longer serving you. That's the first real step toward transformation. Because as long as you are trying to preserve what is dead, you will never create what is alive. The day you stop making peace with mediocrity, procrastination, and excuses is the day you open the door to the person you are capable of becoming. That is the moment you stop wasting your energy trying to revive an expired version of yourself and start preparing the ground for the new one. When you decide to rebuild yourself, you cannot keep escape routes that lead you back to the person you used to be. Too many people claim they want change while secretly holding on to back doors that allow them to retreat the moment life gets difficult. They keep the habits they said they would quit. They keep the relationships they know are toxic. They keep the environments that encourage the same behaviors they promised to leave behind. They tell themselves they are moving forward, But in truth, they have left a trail of breadcrumbs leading back to the old version of themselves. And as soon as the new path gets uncomfortable, they follow that trail right back to where they started. This is why most people repeat the same cycles year after year. They never burn the bridges that connect them to the life they are supposedly leaving. If you are serious about transformation, you have to make returning impossible. You have to destroy the bridges that keep you tied to the past. That means more than words. It means action. It means cutting ties with people who only reinforce your weaknesses. It means leaving environments that celebrate your mediocrity. It means deleting contacts, closing accounts, throwing away things that symbolize who you no longer are. It means creating a point of no return so the only option left is forward. Until you do this, you will always be tempted to run back the moment things get uncomfortable, because comfort is familiar and discomfort is not. Burning bridges is not about anger or revenge. It is not about proving anything to anyone else. It is about clarity and commitment. It is about saying, I have decided to leave that version of myself behind, and I will not allow myself a way back. That act of finality is what forces growth. If there is no way back, there is only through. The old you cannot survive if you starve it of access. It cannot come back to life if you cut off its oxygen supply. The only way the old you lives is if you keep giving it permission to linger. The reason so many people never experience transformation is because they refuse to embrace discomfort. They want the new without severing ties to the old. They want freedom while still keeping the chains in their pocket just in case. They say they want abundance, but they cling to scarcity thinking. They say they want discipline, but they refuse to let go of distraction. They say they want to walk into their purpose, but they still keep company with people who mock purpose. That contradiction keeps them locked in limbo. They are too afraid to let go of what they know, but also too restless to fully accept it. So they lie stuck in between. When you burn the bridges, you eliminate the option of in between. You cannot run back, so you must keep moving forward. That level of commitment is terrifying, but it is also freeing. Suddenly, your energy is no longer divided. You no longer waste time negotiating with yourself about whether you should continue. You no longer play the mental game of, what if this doesn't work? Because you know there is no plan B. The only plan is transformation. The only path is forward. And once you embrace that, you will find strength you never knew you had. There is a cost to rebuilding yourself. The cost is the life you must give up. The cost is the comfort you must release. The cost is the relationships you must outgrow. Many people are unwilling to pay that price, so they stay stuck. They think they can negotiate with growth, bargain with transformation, compromise with destiny. They believe they can have both, the comfort of the old life and the results of the new one. But it doesn't work that way. To rebuild, you must demolish. To rise, you must leave the ashes behind. To step into your new identity, you must burn the bridge that leads to the old one. The moment you light that match and watch the bridge go up in flames, something shifts inside of you. You realize there is no rescue boat waiting behind you. You realize the old patterns, the old distractions, the old excuses are gone. You realize that even if fear whispers, go back, there is no back to go to anymore. And that realization ignites a different kind of fire inside of you. It is the fire of focus, the fire of resolve, the fire that comes when you know there is no retreat, only advance. Some people will not understand. They will tell you that you are being too extreme. They will tell you that you don't need to cut people off, that you don't need to change your environment, that you can balance both the old and the new. But what they call balance is really compromise. What they call moderation is really bondage. They are speaking from their own fear, from their own unwillingness to make the kind of sacrifices you are willing to make. And if you listen to them, you will rebuild halfway and then collapse, because a house built on two foundations cannot stand. The only way forward is total commitment. The only way to prove to yourself that you are serious about transformation is to eliminate every path of retreat. When the bridge is gone, the decision is final. When the way back no longer exists, the way forward becomes the only reality available to you. That is where true transformation begins. The strongest structures are never built overnight, and they are never built where everyone can see them in the beginning. Every great building has its foundation hidden beneath the ground, unseen and unnoticed, yet that foundation carries the weight of everything that stands above it. In the same way, when you decide to rebuild yourself, the work that matters most happens in solitude, not in the spotlight. Too often people want recognition before they've put in the discipline. They want applause before they've earned the strength. They want to be seen as transformed before they've actually been transformed. That desire for validation is part of the old self, the one that needs approval from others to feel valuable. But if you want the new you to last, you must learn to build quietly, patiently, and consistently in silence before anyone else ever sees the result. In solitude, there are no distractions, no comparisons, no applause, and no critics. There is only you, your choices, and your discipline. That is where the real rebuilding happens. It is not glamorous. It is not loud. It is not public. It looks like waking up earlier than you want to, studying when no one is asking you to, working when there is no audience, practicing when there is no stage. It looks like consistency when no one is clapping, and persistence when no one is watching. Solitude is where you train your mind, discipline your habits, and shape your identity so that when you do step out into the public space, you are solid, not fragile. You are grounded, not easily shaken. The danger of trying to build in public first is that you end up creating a performance instead of a transformation. You end up caring more about how you appear than who you are becoming. You might convince others that you are changing, but inside you are still the same, and eventually that gap between the show and the reality will collapse. That is why so many people start with fire and fade quickly. They announce their change before they've done the work. They post about their goals before they've developed the discipline to follow through. They want the perception of growth without the cost of growth. And when pressure comes, the image shatters because there was no foundation underneath it. Solitude protects you from that trap. It forces you to do the real work without the reward of attention. It strips away the easy satisfaction of other people's approval and leaves you with the harder satisfaction of your own consistency. It teaches you that the applause of others is temporary, but the strength you build in silence is permanent. Solitude develops authenticity because there is no one to impress. The only person you are accountable to in that moment is yourself, and that is the person you have to master if you want lasting transformation. Building in solitude also gives you clarity. When you are alone with your thoughts, your goals, and your actions, you are not clouded by other people's opinions. You are not distracted by their doubts or influenced by their limitations. You can hear your own convictions clearly. You can see where you are weak and where you need to grow without pretending for anyone else. That clarity is essential because it allows you to rebuild intentionally instead of haphazardly. It allows you to focus on what actually matters rather than what merely looks good. Another reason solitude is so powerful is that it teaches patience. Growth is not instant and transformation is not overnight. You cannot rush the process of rebuilding any more than you can rush the growth of a seed underground. The time in silence is the time when the roots are spreading, when the strength is forming, when the unseen work is preparing you for the visible results. If you can endure that season of quiet effort, then when the time comes to step into the public, you will not just appear strong, you will actually be strong. You will not just look confident, you will actually be confident. You will not just seem transformed, you will truly be transformed. The solitude also tests your commitment. It is easy to stay motivated when people are cheering you on, when friends are noticing your progress, when everyone is talking about your change. But can you stay motivated when no one is watching? Can you stay disciplined when no one cares? Can you keep showing up when there is no recognition, no applause, no immediate reward? That is the true test. Because if you can be faithful in solitude, you will be unstoppable in public. If you can remain consistent when no one is looking, you will not crumble when everyone is. There is a certain kind of strength that only comes from silence. It is the strength of self-control, the strength of inner discipline, the strength of knowing who you are without needing anyone else to confirm it. That kind of strength cannot be borrowed. It cannot be faked. And it cannot be given to you by someone else. It is forged in the quiet hours, in the unseen moments, in the private battles no one else will ever know about. And it is that strength that allows you to stand tall when the time comes to be seen, to lead, to influence and impact others. So if you are serious about rebuilding yourself, resist the temptation to broadcast it too soon. Resist the urge to announce every move before you've proven it to yourself. Embrace the solitude, embrace the silence, embrace the discipline of building when no one is watching. Because the foundation you lay in private will determine the strength of everything you build in public. The work you do unseen will be the reason you can stand unshaken when everyone else is looking. Your results are never dictated by your circumstances as much as they are by the story you believe about yourself. The narrative you carry in your mind shapes the actions you take, the risks you embrace, and the limits you impose on yourself. If the story is small, your life becomes small. If the story is broken, your choices reflect that brokenness. Too many people remain trapped in cycles not because they lack ability, resources, or opportunity, but because they never challenge the false identity they have accepted. They believe lies about themselves that were whispered by their past, spoken by other people, or formed through disappointment. And those lies become the ceiling that keeps them from rising. Rebuilding yourself requires tearing down that old narrative and redefining what you believe about who you are. If you keep saying, I'm broke, I'm unlucky, I'm not smart enough, you will unconsciously create patterns that confirm those beliefs. You will miss opportunities because you don't think they belong to you. You will sabotage progress because you don't believe you deserve success. You will surround yourself with people who reinforce the limits you've set because they agree with the story you've told yourself. That cycle is powerful because the mind always seeks to make its beliefs true. If you believe you are not capable, you will act in ways that prove you are not capable. If you believe you cannot win, you will stop yourself from even entering the race. The opposite is just as true. If you begin to declare, I am disciplined, I am valuable, I am designed for abundance, your actions start aligning with that identity. You start carrying yourself differently, making decisions with greater conviction, and refusing to settle for less than what you know you are worth. Identity is not just who you are in the present, it is who you decide to become. When you reshape that story, you begin building a life that reflects the new belief. The external results will always catch up to the internal narrative. The challenge is that rewriting your beliefs about yourself is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront years of conditioning. Many of the identities people carry did not start with them. They were handed down by parents, teachers, peers, or society. Someone may have told you that you were not capable, that you would never succeed, that you were average at best. Those voices become embedded into your thinking until they sound like your own. And even if they are lies, repeating them long enough makes them feel like truth. That is why you cannot accept every thought you think. You must question it, examine it, and ask, does this belief empower me to grow, or does it keep me trapped? Rebuilding yourself begins with deciding to believe a bigger story. That means refusing to identify yourself with failure. Even if you have failed before, it means refusing to define yourself by lack, even if you have struggled. It means refusing to wear the labels others have placed on you, even if you once accepted them. The new story must be intentional. It must be rooted in the truth that you are capable of change, that you are created with potential, and that you are worthy of more than what the old identity convinced you to settle for. When you redefine your identity, your habits follow. If you see yourself as disciplined, you begin practicing discipline. If you see yourself as valuable, you stop wasting time on meaningless distractions. If you see yourself as capable, you stop shrinking in the face of challenges. The shift may seem subtle at first, but over time it compounds. Small adjustments in belief lead to massive changes in behavior, and those behaviors produce results that reinforce the new identity. Transformation becomes a cycle of growth instead of a cycle of limitation. This is not about pretending or faking confidence. It is about aligning your self-perception with truth rather than with fear. It is about declaring who you are becoming even before the evidence shows it, because the evidence will always follow the declaration. If you wait until you feel successful to call yourself successful, you will never get there. But if you declare it, live it, and act from it, you will eventually see it manifest. The new story is not about lying to yourself. It is about rejecting lies you've been living under and replacing them with beliefs that empower you to step into your potential. Changing what you believe about yourself also changes how you interact with others. When you see yourself as valuable, you stop tolerating relationships that drain you. When you see yourself as capable, you stop allowing others to talk you out of your vision. When you see yourself as destined for growth, you surround yourself with people who challenge and elevate you instead of those who enable your stagnation. Your circle shifts because your identity shifts, and that alignment accelerates your transformation. Ultimately, the story you tell yourself is the foundation of everything else. You cannot build a new life on an old identity. You cannot rebuild yourself while carrying the same narrative that broke you. You must rewrite it with intention, conviction, and courage. When you do, the new you begins to emerge, not because circumstances change first, but because you change the way you see yourself. That changes the seed that grows into every external result that follows. Goals can inspire you, but habits sustain you. Goals are like destinations you write down on a map, but habits are the steps you take each day that determine whether you will ever arrive. The old version of yourself was addicted to setting goals without ever installing the daily behaviors necessary to reach them. It felt good to write down resolutions, to make promises, to say, this time will be different. But when the excitement faded, the old habits returned. And because those habits were stronger than the momentary motivation, the results always fell short. That is why transformation requires a shift in focus from chasing new goals to building new habits, because habits are what carry you when motivation disappears. Think about the times you set a goal to get healthier, to save more money, to grow your business, or to develop a new skill. In the beginning, you felt a rush of energy. You told yourself you would stay committed. You imagined the outcome. But after a week or two, when life got busy, when obstacles appeared, when the excitement wore off, the habits you had built over years returned and pulled you back into the same cycle. That is the power of habits. They work automatically. And until you replace the old ones with new ones, no goal will stick. The old you relied on inspiration. The new you must rely on consistency. Installing new habits means rewiring the way you live day to day. It means examining your routines and asking, do these behaviors move me toward the person I want to become, or do they keep me tied to the person I've been? If the habit is procrastination, it will reproduce delay no matter how big your goals are. If the habit is distraction, it will consume your focus no matter how passionate your vision is. If the habit is negativity, it will sabotage your progress no matter how much potential you carry. The reality is that your life moves in the direction of your dominant habits, not your fleeting desires. The good news is that habits can be rebuilt just like a structure. You don't have to settle for the ones you currently have. You can design habits that align with the identity you want to step into. That begins with small intentional choices. If you want to become more disciplined, you start by keeping one promise to yourself every day, even if it's small. If you want to grow financially, you start by practicing discipline with what you already have before you demand more. If you want to become more focused, you create environments that remove distractions instead of relying on willpower alone. These small shifts may not feel dramatic at first, but over time they compound into transformation. Habits also require repetition. The old you is addicted to novelty, always chasing something new, But the new you must fall in love with repetition. Doing the same thing over and over again may feel boring in the moment, but it is the path to mastery. Reading a little each day builds knowledge. Practicing a skill daily builds competence. Exercising consistently builds strength. Saving and investing regularly builds wealth. Nothing extraordinary happens from doing something once. It happens from doing it repeatedly until it becomes automatic. That is how a habit becomes part of your identity. Another key to installing new habits is environment. If you keep placing yourself in spaces that reward your old behaviors, your new habits will not survive. If the people around you normalize laziness, gossip, or distraction, you will struggle to build discipline, vision, and focus. Your environment either reinforces your habits or erodes them. That is why part of rebuilding yourself is not just about what you do, but about where you place yourself and who you allow around you. Surround yourself with people and spaces that make the new habits easier and the old habits harder. And transformation accelerates. Habits also require accountability. The old you thrived in secrecy, saying you would change, but keeping your commitments private so no one could see when you failed. The new you must embrace accountability, because accountability creates pressure that sharpens discipline. Whether it is writing down your progress, tracking your consistency, or sharing your commitments with someone who will challenge you, accountability ensures you do not drift back into comfort unnoticed. When you know your actions are being measured, you show up differently. It is important to understand that habits are not just actions, they are expressions of identity. Every time you act consistently in a certain way, you reinforce a belief about who you are. If you repeatedly procrastinate, you internalize the belief that you are unreliable. If you consistently show discipline, you internalize the belief that you are capable and focused. That identity becomes the lens through which you see yourself, and that self-perception guides all future choices. This is why habits are more powerful than goals, because habits don't just change what you achieve, they change who you believe you are. Transformation is not a one-time decision, but a daily pattern. The old you lived in cycles of setting goals and breaking promises. The new you must live in cycles of installing habits and keeping promises. Over time, those habits become your new default, your new identity, your new way of life. Goals may point you in the right direction, but it is habits that carry you to the destination and ensure you stay there. Rebuilding yourself requires understanding that for a season, you may have to walk alone. This is one of the hardest truths to accept because human beings crave connection, validation, and community. You want people to notice the changes you are making. You want support when you are tired. And you want encouragement when the process feels heavy. But the reality is that when you begin the journey of transformation, many of the people around you will not understand. Some will doubt you, some will criticize you, some will quietly hope you fail so they can feel justified staying where they are. And some will simply be indifferent, not because they hate you, but because your vision does not belong to them. It belongs to you. This is why the early stages of rebuilding are often lonely. Walking alone does not mean you will always be without people, but it does mean you must be willing to take steps when no one claps, when no one notices, when no one celebrates. That willingness separates those who change from those who only dream about change. Because if you need an audience to be disciplined, you won't last. If you need constant support to stay consistent, you won't grow. The season of solitude is where you prove to yourself that your commitment is real. It is where you develop the inner strength that does not depend on approval or recognition. It is where your foundation is tested, because if you can carry your vision alone, you will be strong enough to carry it when others finally join. Many people avoid solitude because it feels uncomfortable. They fear silence. They fear being misunderstood. They fear rejection. So they cling to the crowd even when the crowd keeps them average. They dilute their vision to fit in. They lower their standards so others won't feel uncomfortable. They compromise their progress to stay accepted. But the truth is that every person who has rebuilt their life, every person who has achieved transformation has had to endure seasons where they were misunderstood, criticized, or left alone. Walking alone is not a punishment. It is preparation. It is in that season that you discover whether your vision is strong enough to survive without applause. Solitude is also where clarity sharpens. When you are surrounded by noise, everyone has an opinion about what you should do, how you should live, and what you should pursue. Some of those voices are well-meaning, but they create confusion. When you step back and walk alone, you hear your own convictions more clearly. You start to see what actually matters instead of being pulled in a dozen directions by other people's expectations. That clarity is essential because it keeps you aligned with your true path instead of getting lost trying to satisfy everyone else. There is also a refining that happens in loneliness. When you have no one else to depend on, you are forced to face your excuses, your weaknesses, and your fears. You cannot hide behind others. You cannot rely on their energy to carry you. You cannot blame them when you stop. All that is left is you and the work. That refining process builds resilience because you learn to push forward even when no one is there to push you. It builds self-trust because you begin to see that you are capable of keeping promises to yourself without external pressure. And it builds strength because every step you take alone is proof that you are stronger than the old version of yourself that needed constant validation. Eventually, the right people will appear, but they won't be the ones who kept you small. They will be people who resonate with the new you, people who challenge you to rise higher, people who recognize your discipline because they live with the same discipline. But they will not come until you first prove that you can walk without them. You must demonstrate to life itself that your commitment is not dependent on company. When you carry the vision alone, you send a signal that you are ready for alignment with those who will multiply it. Walking alone also teaches you gratitude. When you finally do connect with people who support you, you appreciate them more because you know what it felt like to walk without support. You value their presence without becoming dependent on it because you have already learned how to move without it. That balance allows you to collaborate without clinging, to connect without compromising, to grow with others without losing yourself. It keeps you grounded because you remember that you were capable before they came, and you will remain capable even if they leave. The season of solitude is not easy, but it is necessary. It strips away the illusions, the crutches, the distractions. It forces you to decide whether you really want transformation or whether you only wanted applause. It shows you the difference between desire and discipline. And it proves to you that your vision is worth carrying, even when no one else sees it yet. The path to rebuilding yourself will require many things: discipline, faith, courage, but it will begin with the willingness to walk it alone until the right people can walk with you. So here's the truth. You don't need a new year, a new week, or a new chance. You need a new you. Destroy the old version that kept you broke, afraid, and silent. Rebuild a version that walks with confidence, acts with faith, and creates with power. If you're willing to destroy the old you today, then tomorrow doesn't have to look like yesterday. And when you rebuild yourself, even alone, you'll realize you were never truly alone because your future was waiting on you the entire time.